This is your reminder to stop sleeping on Studio One. In case you missed it, PreSonus recently released Studio One 7, and it is chock full of features that make recording, mixing, and even learning songs a lot easier. Without further ado, let's talk about Studio One 7 and a few of my favorite features. Welcome to Get Offset. My name is Emily, and you are just what I needed today. Sweetwater is sponsoring this video about Studio One 7, but I've personally been using Studio One since about 2019, and I haven't looked back. So this is coming from me as someone who's a fan of the product, but big thanks to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. Check out the video description for affiliate links to Sweetwater. Without further ado, let's get into some of my favorite features in the new Studio One 7. We're kicking it off today with automatic stem separation. You may have seen some AI-assisted stem separation tools in the past few years. They work to varying degrees of quality, but now it is built into Studio One 7, so you don't have to use an external tool or software to separate your stems. When you're using Studio One 7 to separate your stems, what it's going to do is it's going to separate vocals, drums, bass, and other. Other includes guitars, keyboards, and, other stuff. So what I have loaded up here is a track that Sunday Crush and I were working on. We were workshopping kind of a little country jam. So I have the track that we recorded in rehearsal in our drummer's basement. Let's see how it separates those stems. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to audio, and I'm going to go to separate stems. And I'm going to separate all of them. So that was pretty fast. It estimated that it was going to take 5 minutes. It ended up taking quite a bit less time. Let's see how long this track is. So we have about 3 minutes of song here. Go back to the beginning. Let's go ahead and listen to the different parts. So starting with drums. That's drums. I don't hear really anything else in there. Bass is a little bit hard to hear. Normalize it. That gives me a good idea. Let's listen to the other, which will just be my guitar. I'll say it's close. It's nothing that I would. Those aren't things that I would pull necessarily in any kind of like mixing capacity. The drums maybe, because those sounded pretty spot on. If we listen to some vocals, there's not much around here these days. That's kind of weird because this is what that actually sounds like. Around here these days. Seems like you've been put in your place. It's losing sibilance, for sure. So is that being picked up in the guitar track or where? No, not being picked up there. Is it being picked up here? I wonder if it's being picked up with that hi-hat a little bit. That's possible, but it's definitely losing the S sounds. That's definitely not a deal breaker for me. That's not. I'm not someone who's like pulling stuff to do samples with. But again, if you're looking for the drums, which I think is kind of a more common thing to sample, and who knows, maybe something that's recorded with a little bit higher quality, or in a studio, maybe that'll work a little bit better than taking a recording from a live couple microphones situation. But I digress. You might be wondering what stem separation is good for. I can tell you what I'm most likely to use it for, and there's a couple of things. One is for learning songs. I do play a fair share of pickup gigs, and that often means learning guitar parts. And sometimes when if I'm doing like a country tribute night, there'll be Guitar Pro tabs, there'll be YouTube tutorials. But for a lot of the stuff I do as local performers, I have to listen to the album that they send me, and now I can separate the guitar part, or at least get rid of the other things if I'm having trouble hearing exactly what's happening at part of a song, which is common. Now I can separate that. So that's one thing I would use it for. Um, Most people, I think, will probably use this in a sampling capacity. So if you're making beats, you're making a song, maybe there's something in another song you want to sample, but it's just the bass part or just the vocals or just the drums. This makes that really easy. But here's another thing, and here's what I'm going to show you, is what if you don't love a part in a song and you want to audition something new? So maybe, let's say you want to put in a new bass part. You need to get rid of the other bass part to do that. Or if you want to try out some different drum loops, you can mute your drums, create a new track with new drums, and maybe send them to your drummer as a proof of concept, or hey, maybe you could try something a little bit more like this. So that's what we're going to do today. No offense, Dan, I love you so much, and I think that's a fun part, but I would like to audition some new drum parts. So here's one called Sweet Tea Drums, and we can load this in. It's not gonna be quite right. So that's the downbeat on the one. I set the tempo to around 100, 103. That's what I'm pretty sure we play it at. So let's hear it.
Not much around here these days. Seems like you've been put in your place. I don't think I've got much to say.
So you can hear that started strong, but we weren't playing this to a click track, and as good as Dan is, uh, that has created a bit of an issue, which leads me to the next thing that we're going to talk about. That is the new tempo detection. The new tempo detection is automatic, it's fast, and it can create variable speed tempo tracks, click tracks. So to do that, it's really, really easy. We're going to right click our main track. We're going to go back to audio events. We are going to detect tempo first, which I don't know if that part's necessary, but that's what I'm doing. And then we are going to extract to tempo track. So we can see visually up here how we bounce between like 100, 103, 105. That's not very far off, but it's a little off. So what that'll do by setting this automatic tempo detection is if you create like a drum part in impact, or if you're using a loop, you can have it so that it lines up with your speeding up, your slowing down. Let's hear this again. What I've done now is I've adjusted that starting point, and I'm going to turn off the vocals. I just want you to hear the everything else kind of locking in, the bass and the guitar. So that's pretty darn close to perfect if you ask me. So that is the benefit of this new tool. Anything you play live with feeling, or if you're a little bit off, because even sometimes when we do record to a click track, sometimes it's not perfect. This is a great way to fix that for things like virtual instruments, including virtual drums that you may need to quantize or something like that. So can't speak highly enough of these two features. They're a bit of a game changer for me, and I know people hate that word. People hate the word game changer, but for being able to use Studio One 7 as a writing tool, as an arranging tool, this is just one of those features that I can see myself using a lot. So if you're enjoying this video, please take a second to like, comment, and subscribe. You can even tip by saying thanks down there. No pressure to ever do that. Of course, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/getoffset. At $5 or more a month, you get access to our exclusive Discord server. And if you're interested in getting Studio One 7 or anything else in the musical realm, please consider using the Sweetwater affiliate link in the video description. Every time you buy something using one of those links, I get a small portion of that sale shared with me. It's a great way to support the channel doing things that, let's be honest with ourselves and each other, we were probably going to do anyway. I'm a big fan of Sweetwater. Even before I was working with them, I was buying from them because I know they're going to give me a great, fair deal on anything I'd like to buy, and their customer service and support is top notch. I remember one time I asked them what gig bag would fit a weird guitar I had, and my rep actually went down to the warehouse or wherever there were cases, had that model that I had, which was a Starcaster, and put it in different gig bags to find out which one would work best for me. And I don't think there are a ton of other places that would do that for you, nor would they have the resources to. So again, big thank you and shout out to Sweetwater. I can't tell you how many times I've had to change the key to a song. Normally this is something that I would also use for learning songs. A lot of these tribute shows I do, people want to change the key, which is fine. You should be, singing songs that are in your range is part of the job, but it is a little bit harder. And before, I've had to resort to either learning it in the original key and transposing it myself, or just using like plugins that are kind of on YouTube and stuff like that. But now that I can put a song directly into Studio One and change the key, that's going to make the learning easier for me. But that's not the only use case for this. I've also had instances where I've recorded guitar parts for people, sent it off to them, or recorded it in the studio with them, and they came back and they're like, I realized I can't sing it in that key. Can we change it? And I'm always happy to do that. And in this particular case, the person did pay me extra, but it was like a half a step. And I have to imagine it would have been more cost effective for them to be able to transpose it, because I had a direct signal for them. I think it still would have sounded pretty good. So here's a track that if you're familiar with this channel, you may have heard in the background before. I use it in the background a lot. But how would it sound in a different key? Let's find out. I'm gonna go over here, turn on our inspector, and let's take a look. So we have some things like follow global transpose in here. I am going to turn that off for the drums, and I'm going to turn it on for everything else. So here is it originally. Is up a half step. So I think that honestly doesn't sound bad at all. Really quickly, if you are doing this with a virtual drum set, please make sure that you turn off the global transpose. It's really doesn't play well with virtual drum kits because it also wants to send the drums down. So it's not happening with the drum set, thankfully, because I bounced that from a track, but it previously had been. And I had a real doozy of a time figuring out why my drums sounded bad all of a sudden. Turn off that solo, let's hear everything else down, which will be very funny on the bass. So if you just have to take it up or down, like a couple of half steps, I think that's the best case scenario for this. I think you can maybe avoid re-recording sometimes. Obviously, this works pretty seamlessly with virtual instruments, and I think it works well on this because I have direct signals going and all of the other sounds are from plugins. So I've mentioned virtual plugins a few times, mainly in regards to drums. But Studio One has a new virtual instrument called Deep Flight One. So let's hear it. I'm gonna start up a presence session. I'm going to use my QWERTY keyboard. as my keyboard because I'm lazy. But let's click on this, go to Deep Flight 1, and just pull open some things. So that is called cassette nude. It's definitely a nude. So these are digital choirs right now. So these are all kind of nice little things. Let's take this back to 0, and return to 0. That's pretty fun. I really have been digging a lot of these sounds, some more than others. They are all a mood. So you have different kind of takes on some of these similar sounds, and obviously you can change the parameters pretty widely. Dance leads, synths in there. We have a lot of drones, which I like. I just think this is really, really cool. I'm a bit of a fan of it. Soundscapes. Because we know not everybody who's using DAWs is making like traditional kind of music. There are people who make sounds for videos and TV and movies. And this is just it's so wide. It's not just a traditional synth, though there are some kind of lead sounds in there. But I've really had a lot of fun digging through this, and this is not my normal purview. I like a lot of the pads. It's just a really nice inclusion. As you can probably tell, Deep Flight 1 is certainly worthy of its own full-length demo, so I'm not gonna dig too much into it, but it's there, it's fun, it's cool, it has a lot of sounds, and I think it's just a great thing to have included for free, essentially. There's a lot more included in Studio One 7 that I didn't cover today. And honestly, a lot of those updates are great for people who make beats, make samples, people who use a lot of virtual instruments and drumming pads and stuff like that. But those just aren't things that are in my normal workflow. So though there's something I plan on digging into and experimenting with more, I didn't feel like it would behoove all of us to have me demo all of those things in this video, which I wanted to focus more on songwriting and writing your parts and learning new things, which is how I frankly use Studio One a lot. If you liked this video, please check out the other video on the screen, which YouTube has picked just for you. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, check us out on Patreon, use the affiliate links in the video description, and all that stuff. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for understanding. Until next time, my name is Emily. Goodbye.